Hello everybody, my name is Pravus and welcome back to Plague Inc. Evolved Custom Scenarios. Going through special request today. And this one actually is a little bit different. So, some of you guys may know that running this YouTube channel, I do have a business email address for people who want to do business inquiries. Things like sending me some game review codes and stuff like that. Okay, cool. But this particular scenario that we're going to be playing today comes from a viewer who actually used my email address to ask me to check it out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say up front that I generally do not want people to be emailing this address unless it actually has to do with a business inquiry. Just in general. Simply because I don't want to have to kind of skim through my emails, and I don't want to set the precedent that everyone who wants me to try a scenario can just kind of bombard me. That's not what I'm looking for. This is what the comment section is for. If you guys want me to try out a scenario, just keep leaving comments. Eventually, I'll try to get around to it. But since no one has ever attempted this one before, and someone kind of thought outside the box to get my attention, I'm going to give an A for effort, and we're actually going to try out this new scenario that was created and otherwise has been undiscovered. But again, people, just do understand, just because I'm doing it this time does not mean I'll do it every time. But today, I will be generous. So, alright, you're going to get the shout-out you wanted, but let's hope it's good. The Dust Epidemic by Summertime Scoutswell. Our world is incredible. Life, love, and the leisure to play video games. Cough. Although the things we value are minuscule compared to what really matters, that 10 cents you found on the road, you can start thinking what your choices can do. Small things may be coincidental, as in anyone could have seen that. Some people are too narrow-minded, thinking about possibilities and all that nonsense, to see something so small and so obvious destroy something so big. Okay, that's strangely poetic. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that for a scenario before. Color me intrigued. Let's give it a shot. This is going to be a bacteria type. Okay, symptostasis. Let's go ahead and switch things up to the aquasite, my old favorite. And everything else is probably fine as it is. We'll play this one on normal. And dust, D-U-S-T. Does it stand for something? I have no idea. Let's add an extra period. There we go. Project Dust. Small and insignificant, slowly coat the world with dust until nothing stands in your way. No capitalization here, but I'm actually going to go ahead and say that's probably not the author's fault. When I was experimenting with creating my own scenarios a while back and kind of publishing it and testing it on my own time, I found that rather frequently, the scenario creator would just remove all the capitalization and just bring it all to lowercase. And that has nothing to do with the author's fault. It just sort of seems to be a bug in the scenario editor. I'm not sure why that happens. I don't know if they're ever going to fix it. And we have to select a new country. Let's go ahead and start off in Saudi Arabia. I have no idea what to expect as far as difficulty. Dust begins in Saudi Arabia. Okay, let's take a look at the transmission symptoms and abilities. We have pigeons. Small pigeons can carry the particles by land. Increases mutation chance. Journey. Attached to planes, travel long distances. Adventure. Journey and adventure. Adventure time! Particles attached to boats and travel long distances. Okay, kind of the same principle there, but yeah, that's fine. Symptoms, we have... Come on, click, thank you. Food poisoning. Particles cover foods and goes into the digestive tract. Yeah, that would make sense. Skin, coats the skin. Coats the iris. There's a lot of coating here. I don't know if you've noticed this. You know, we attach to planes or to the boats, then we coat food, or we coat the iris, or the skin, or whatever. Particles are inhaled and causes blockage in the esophagus, more infectious in cities. Okay, so now this is the kind of stuff that I want to be seeing more often in scenarios, if you have the character space for it. If there's something special about this infection type, symptom, or transmission, that gives us an extra bonus in urban environments, hot environments, and so on, I want to know that information up front. So in this case, you did it. I'm going to assume that with Obscure, there is nothing special about it. It's just severe for some reason. So if you're trying... I'm just kind of using this as an experience, as an opportunity to sort of explain what things I like to see in a scenario here, which is what the author asked for, so I don't feel too bad about it. But just so you guys know, if you are aspiring to create your own scenario, adding things like this make it so much more intuitive as you play your scenario. Makes it a lot easier for people who want to pick it up, because you as the author know what everything does, but a new player doesn't necessarily know that. So anything to help them along the way, short and concise, is a good thing. Abilities, we have Morph, which is basically just genetic reshuffle, Drug Resistance, or Medical Exploit, I assume, Medium Resistance to Consumer Pharmaceuticals, Movement, Exposure, Cooling, and Asteroid? A small rock of silicon and space debris strikes a random country. 0 DNA cost. Now, how the heck does the disease cause this? Is it just dust? You know, it's not even really a disease, I suppose, as much as just dust, but how do we control meteors? I don't know, but it's here, so I'm gonna hold on to it and meteor the crap out of Greenland later. Now, one thing I will say, it's not bad, right, to have some basic transmissions and just rename them and stuff to fit your theme. That's not a bad thing, but it is also a good thing to kind of create entirely new stuff, you know? I don't know. I can't think of any particular examples, right? I'm not gonna pretend to just create your scenario for you. But sometimes it's okay to not have a hot and a cold resistance, and instead create something completely different. Like, actually, I don't know. How does dust particles remove excess heat? Dust doesn't really care about the cold or the heat, as far as I'm aware. So I'm not too sure how that works. Whatever, my point is, it's okay to rename things and just kind of change the descriptions, but it's okay to also create entirely new transmission symptoms and abilities. Not that this scenario necessarily needs that, but I know that some people... I've played some scenarios that I didn't end up creating videos for because ultimately they were just the basic transmissions and stuff just rearranged and with a little bit of an extra description, and that's it. And there was nothing really creative, you just rearranged everything and called it your own. Not saying this scenario's doing that, but some people do. Let's go ahead and grab Journey for the arid transmission. We could go for the digestive tract, the skin, or coughing. None of these necessarily feel like a requirement yet. So for now, I'm going to stick with the transmission and sort of see how we go. Cheap, clean power discovered. Green tech firm claims to have developed a power station that runs entirely on laughter and joy, denies reports of oil barrels nearby. That's funny. I don't know if that's unique to the scenario or not, but that's still kind of funny. Let's go for another level of air. 16 points. Never mind. I guess we'll wait. There we go. My shoulder is killing me right now. But for the first time in my life, I'm actually trying out one of these icy hot pads. You know, it kind of feels like a menthol for my skin. But it's working really well. It's softening up the muscle a lot. Tweaked it out really bad today. I don't know if I slept on it wrong or what. I know my back was hurting not too long ago. But that was because I was probably lifting a couch and the cold weather didn't help. Today, it's something entirely different. All right, so we got pigeons. Do we want to go for adventure for the boats? Sure, why not? And then we have carrier. I like that there's a little target reticule on this. Are we going to hunt them? Many species of birds carry particles by land. Okay, so I guess it's true. You've diversified from only pigeons to now basically all avian stuff. But really, what has this added to the scenario? You know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to be overly critical and nitpicky here, but I really would encourage people to really think through, if I'm going to add in these different transmissions, if I'm going to change the description, the title, and all this stuff, what does it add? What is the value of this symptom, this transmission? And yes, it means you have to spend a lot of time being extremely selective in everything you're creating. I'm aware, and I'm not saying this is wrong. It's fine to have an extra bird transmission. That's perfectly fine. But I just encourage people to really think through, what are you going for, you know? Don't put in transmission options just because you feel obligated. You know, it really needs to mean something to you. At least, that's my personal philosophy. And I don't know how many more disclaimers I can do as far as saying I'm not trying to be overly nitpicky. I'm not criticizing this particular author, I'm just telling you guys, if you are aspiring to create your own scenarios, these are some general rules of practice that I think would be good when you're creating your scenario. All right, we've unlocked a couple new things. We have sneezing, very infectious in cities, which is basically the exact same thing as coughing. So, yeah, okay, I guess we'll pick that up. Disguise. Particles are absorbed and goes into the bloodstream. Yick! We're creating sludge inside of our blood. Ew. But reasonably effective for a pretty cheap cost with the symptostasis. Not too bad. Skin infection. The skin needs to be thoroughly cleaned. More infectious in poor countries. There we go. Okay, yeah, see, that's a good addition there. You know, the places with worse hygiene are going to be having a harder time. Poor countries are now more susceptible. That makes perfect sense. Good. That's the kind of stuff I want to see in people's scenarios in the future. That kind of an idea. Transmission. Do we want to go for the is it gyroscopic or euroscopic? Particle gains the ability to swim, float, glide, and fly. As opposed to what before? It could only collect on boats and planes, but it couldn't, like, float in the water? I find that somewhat hard to believe. Let's go for carrier. We're going to increase our mutation chance. Whoa! Okay, getting a lot more transmission there. That's not so bad. Okay, let's go ahead and grab uroscopic, and that's it? That's all we have for transmission. Is that it? Alright. Well, we'll see if anything else really gets unlocked. We could go for asteroid, but meh. Let's just save up some points and get some resistances. We need some cold resistance pretty badly. And by the way, when I was saying earlier that, like, you don't have to feel obligated to include certain things just because they're, like, in the vanilla game, keep in mind, whatever you're not putting in, though, changes the balance of the scenario as well. So you don't have to have cold and heat resistance in your scenario if it doesn't fit the theme, that's fine. But keep in mind, by taking that out, have I now unbalanced a scenario where it's almost impossible to get into a cold place? You know, you have to think that kind of stuff through. And it's really difficult to do. There's a lot of thought that has to go into a really good scenario. But just something to think about. UK is leading the global cure effort. We have gone into most of the world. Iceland, Italy, Norway, Sweden, Central Europe. Let's go for some more cold resistance. Now, one thing I will say, as just kind of a personal preference, I would prefer to see things like this medical loophole attached to the drug resistance. I know that it's more symmetrical to do it this way down the line. Okay, I get it. But it's more intuitive to me to grab level 1 of drug resistance and know that there's going to be a second one attached to it. And it also helps me figure out what the prerequisites are. You know, if I want to get to whatever this is, I need to get the one before it, and stuff like that. What do we have here? Cocoon. The majority of the body is sheathed in dust particles. Slowly, dust collectively grows from the inside. It's not entirely how dust works, but I will go with it anyway. It certainly looks disgusting and bulbous. Ew. Sprawl. Particles compact, and suddenly burst from the inside. The husk left from the body increases infectivity even after death. So corpse transmission. Okay, I get that. If it's compacting, it's increasing in density. Are you sure it's increasing in volume? I mean, if it increased in pressure, I would expect it to burst. But I don't know. That's pretty lethal, though. Blindness, the eye is fully coated. This is just severity. And that's fine. It's okay to have just severity symptoms. Sometimes severity is a good thing, you know? You get some more DNA from your red bubbles. Sensory failure. The sight and taste senses are tremendously weak. You are much harder to cure. Alright, that sounds pretty decent. We'll grab that. No more transmissions to get, which I'm a little disappointed by, but that's okay. I mean, it's not a big deal. It just means if I went for the transstasis, I would be horribly disappointed. We're going to save the meteorite in case I end up needing it. How are we looking as far as... Okay, we're having a hard time in Europe. Let's get some more drug resistance and really try to speed things up here a little bit. First death in Saudi Arabia, probably because they're exploding from dust. Projectile vomiting. Okay, I don't recall... Wait, projectile vomiting? We got... No. Yes. Never mind. For a second I was about to say, that doesn't make sense. We don't have, we have nausea, we don't have sneezing. Yes, we do. We have sneezing. Okay. Never mind, I stand corrected. That is a perfectly fine combo to have into the game. So how are we looking as far as countries? We're missing Iceland only. You know what? I was gonna let it get in there naturally, but let's launch an asteroid. Waboom! And we've arrived in Iceland. I'm not sure how that works, but we did it. Yay! Alright, well, sprawl then is what we're gonna go for next. Particles compact, bursting from the inside. Now we have access to chain. That wasn't enough. Explosions are chained through other infected host. Basically, everybody dies, lol. Personal preference, don't include that. Again, that's a matter of personal preference. So, I know that some people like to have really funny scenarios, but you don't want it to sound too conversational. You want it to be witty and clever, right? But you don't want this to be conversational. It kind of suggests a certain level of unprofessionalism, which, again, in the Plague Inc. scenario, you know, you can do what you want, right? Again, this is a very nitpicky thing. But personal preference, you know, there's no need for a question that wasn't enough. There's no need for a question for saying lol in a scenario. It just doesn't really serve any particular purpose. So my recommendation, I would just leave that out entirely. We're going to go ahead and grab 2 levels of the genetic hardening. Just kind of slow down the cure. But here's the problem. Now we've reached a point where there's really nothing else to do. There's nothing to do to get more infectivity, nothing to do to get more severity, nothing to do to get more lethality, at least as far as I'm aware. So we're just going to do our best to, like, get the best possible score, but we've completely run out of things to do, and a lot of the world still needs to die. That's a lot of DNA that has absolutely no purpose and nowhere to allocate it. So when you find yourself in that kind of a position, it probably means that you don't have enough content in your scenario itself. Now, you could put in more transmission options. Right now, there's only 7. So a few more options that have to do with dust would be good. Again, be thematic about it. As far as some symptoms, I mean, this isn't actually terrible. I mean, I feel like it could use a little bit more, but it's not like this doesn't have a... Whoop, no, I don't want to devolve. It's not like this doesn't have a particular sense of direction. So I'm not really sure what you would add on to it, but I mean, if you really want to be symmetrical, add some more right here. There you go. I don't know. More symptoms is not a bad thing. Abilities are probably fine. You probably don't need to get any more abilities in here. It wouldn't hurt, right? But it's not absolutely necessary. Panic. The structure of the particles violently shifts. Cure progress is set back and you are greatly harder to cure. So I guess I haven't been really reading through every single one of these descriptions, because every single one of them does have a custom description. But they're very short and to the point and don't actually say much about, like, you know, I don't know, let's say, particles are well adjusted to cold climates. Okay. Great. I mean, it doesn't tell me much. It doesn't need to tell me much, but it's not a very remarkable description. At some point, I kind of question, is there any value that you have added by changing the description? You know, again, and that's the thing. Like, I have criticized previous scenarios for not having enough custom descriptions and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that every single one of them has to be custom. It just means, you know, I want there to be a unique theme to the scenario, and you should change things where it is appropriate. It doesn't mean that everything has to be changed for the sake of the change. That doesn't inherently make it better. It doesn't inherently make it worse either. So I don't know. 2 stars, 462 days, 26% cure progress. I mean, it's not really a bad idea for a scenario. Dust is fine. Covering the world in dust and ashes and stuff is great, but, like, how does humanity interact with that? You know, does are you covering the world in so much dust that, like, the buildings are getting covered? Like, where's the dust coming from? I mean, I don't know. It's a cool idea for a theme, but I would flesh it out a little bit more. I'd add in a little bit more transmission, and I would add in a little bit more symptoms. That's probably what I would do. Either that, or I would greatly increase some of the stats, like some of the lethality and stuff, so that it is a faster scenario. Because we got to a point where I've spent pretty much every single point, gotten almost every single thing there is to get, and I just had nothing else to do. So in that case, you know, I would recommend just speeding up the scenario in general, so that people don't feel bored. Again, either way. So this is just a lot of personal preference stuff. Not a bad start, honestly, to a scenario. I think you've got kind of the right idea in several places, but there's just a few areas of improvement and just a few general practice rules that don't necessarily have to apply to the scenario, but just something that people probably could learn from. I'm going to go ahead and recommend it so that people can find it a little bit faster. You know, I think right now it only has, at the time I'm recording this, it has 2 people subscribed to it just entirely. Only 2. Brand spanking new. So if you guys have some suggestions, you know, let the author know down in the comment section below. This is a good opportunity to kind of build up a scenario into something awesome. In fact, in general, what do you guys like to see in your scenarios, in these custom scenarios? What really seems good to you, right? I've got some personal sticklers about customization and actually justifying being a custom scenario. Good grammar to look professional, and stuff like that. You know, those are some things that really personally appeal to me. But what about you? I'd be interested in hearing some thoughts from the rest of the community. Be nice to the author and give him some good suggestions. And if you guys have any more suggestions, you know, that I've overlooked or you think I'm being unfair, let me know so I can personally improve myself as well, because we all have room for improvement. I'm a firm believer in that. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you to the author for sending me this. Again, in the future, for those of you who think that this might be a good way to get my attention, please do not send me, you know, emails about this stuff. That's intended for business inquiries only. The comment section will work. I do read the comments. And if you guys want me to play a particular scenario, you know, make sure you give me the name and maybe the author if it helps. And just keep posting the comments, you know, if I overlook it. And I will try to add it onto the list. Give me a week or so to get to it. And if you still haven't done it, leave the comment again as a gentle reminder. You know, eventually I will get around to you. All right? Cool. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.